to talk about body fat, which is a popular topic, specifically how to lose body fat, since I assume most people do not want to gain body fat. So apparently, a lot of people, it's pretty obvious, have experienced a lot of difficulty losing body fat. Excuse me. But the formula for losing body fat is simple: increase your activity, especially exercise, and take in fewer calories. You get the best results by burning more calories through exercise while reducing your daily intake enough to cause an energy deficit and make your body tap into stored fat for energy. If everything works out well, the fat is oxidized or burned when you exercise. The trouble is, it doesn't always work out that way. Most studies that compare dieting alone to exercise alone show that dieting produces greater weight loss than exercise. Even so, it's best to combine the two. Dieting alone is practically guaranteed to lead to rebound weight gain because it does nothing to boost your resting metabolism and can make you lose lean mass, which itself leads to a lower resting metabolic rate. When that happens, it takes an extraordinary amount of willpower to stick with the reduced number of calories required to maintain the new lower weight achieved through dieting. Most people don't have that much willpower, and nearly all who lose weight by dieting alone gain it back and then some, producing a 97% recidivism rate. That means almost everybody within 5 years who goes on a diet uh, gains all the weight back. An extreme example of this, which I discussed in my Applied Metabolics newsletter, was the TV show Biggest Losers. I discussed the methods they use, and I discussed why they regained the weight, what they did wrong. That article is available to subscribers to my Applied Metabolics newsletter. It's in the online archive. But still, many are disappointed with the results they get when trying to lose weight through exercise. Some complain that it comes off agonizingly slow, which leads to such behavior as gross overtraining, a misguided cure that's even worse than the disease. The question then arises, why does exercise so often fail to produce exceptional fat loss results? In an upcoming article in my Applied Metabolic newsletter, I'm going to talk about all the reasons why exercise sometimes completely fails to produce fat loss in people. There's a lot of reasons that very few people are aware of, including a lot of scientists and doctors. This will be explained in this article. I've seen it graphically illustrated at Gold's Gym in Venice, California, where I train. There I've observed clients of personal trainers whose bodies never seem to change or improve in any way. Fat people remain fat even when training under the guidance of a knowledgeable and experienced trainer. One obvious answer is that clients don't follow a proper diet, believing that the gym work is all they need. In other words, they'll go through a workout with a trainer and then immediately leave the gym and eat a large pizza and a quart of ice cream, and then they wonder why they're not losing fat. All right, so let's talk about the various factors that basically encompass the reasons why people or anybody is not losing fat, even though they seem to be doing the right things. So the first reason why I think a lot of people experience difficulties in losing body fat has to do with what I call the intensity factor. To be effective for losing body fat, exercise needs to be done frequently enough and with enough intensity to use up stored body fat. In terms of losing body fat, for example, you have to do aerobic exercise a minimal of 4 days a week to affect body composition. You can get cardiovascular benefits alone by doing it twice a week, but if you want to change your body composition and lose body fat, you got to do aerobics 4 days a week. Resting too long between sets or gabbing interminably on cell phones is a good way to blunt exercise fat loss. Yet you see that going on all the time. I've talked about this in other videos. These people that do a set and then talk on a cell phone for 20 minutes, they're not even raising their resting metabolic rate. They're doing absolutely nothing to burn fat. If you were to measure the calories they burned in their workout, it would be probably be replaced by eating one slice or half a slice of bread. They're totally wasting their time if they're trying to lose body fat. Another problem that kind of hinders body fat loss is pre-workout insulin surge. And this has to do with taking in simple carbs before and during exercise. High glycemic carbs enter the blood rapidly and trigger significant insulin release, and the insulin in turn blunts fat mobilization during exercise. If you take in carbs during training, you won't burn fat at all. Even getting too much protein prior to training can provoke a sufficient insulin response to inhibit fat use during exercise in those who carry more body fat. In other words, put it simply, if you're one of those people that likes to take a carbohydrate drink and sip it during your workout, it'll definitely help your energy probably. And if your workouts are over 2 hours, it's a definite advantage, as I wrote in a recent article in my Applied Metabolics newsletter. But if your goal is to burn maximum amounts of fat, it's a big mistake to take in simple carbs right before you work out and during the workout, and even taking a large protein drink before the workout, because some of the amino acids like leucine will stimulate enough insulin to blunt fat loss during the workout. So this is a very common mistake. Another mistake, pre-workout fasting. Conversely, fasting or not eating anything before workout lowers what they call the respiratory quotient, which is a measure of how much body fat you're burning during exercise. That means you burn less fat during training when you don't eat. The one exception is when you exercise the first thing in the morning on a completely empty stomach. Now, the thought is that the reduced glycogen stores at that time allow you to tap in to body fat more readily. However, this is a controversy among researchers. Some studies show that you actually burn less fat if you do a fasting aerobic session. Other studies show that you actually do burn more fat. So it's kind of up in the air right now. But I would not say that fasting aerobics is a definite route to fat loss for most people. Another reason, frequent weight gain and loss. This is called yo-yo dieting. And again, because this is a major topic, I'm going to have a huge article on yo-yo dieting or gaining and losing body fat in an upcoming article, my Applied Metabolics newsletter. I've uncovered some research in this area that it's absolutely fascinating stuff that I've never seen or known, even after all the years of study. This is an unbelievably interesting subject. But the intermittent dieting, or this gaining weight and losing weight, it can hamper exercise-induced fat loss. That'll probably come as a surprise to many competitive bodybuilders who habitually gain and then lose weight prior to a contest. But that's a classic example of yo-yo dieting. Studies with mice show that when the rodents lose a significant amount of weight after eating a low-calorie diet, they take twice as long to lose weight when they go back on the diet. In addition, compared to the first dieting phase, they take half as much time to put the lost weight back on when they start eating normally. Studies with human subjects show that habitual yo-yo dieters end up fatter. Even worse, diet cycling predisposes a person to a higher incidence of cardiovascular disease than what people who stay fat experience. In other words, gaining weight, then losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, it's harder on your heart than being fat, staying fat. Believe it or not, those who overly restrict calories lose equal amounts of fat and muscle, but their eventual weight regain will be all fat, making it harder to lose fat the next time due to a metabolic shutdown or slowdown from the loss of muscle. So then the next reason why a lot of people experience difficulty in losing fat, I've discussed, I did a video on it, I've mentioned other videos, not enough sleep. Sleep is an often overlooked factor. Those who sleep less tend to be fatter for a number of reasons, chiefly an imbalance of gut hormones that affect appetite. One such hormone, ghrelin, is a potent appetite booster, while another, leptin, decreases appetite. One study found that those who slept only 5 hours a night had 15% higher ghrelin counts and 15% lower leptin counts than those who slept for 8 hours. Lack of sleep also blunts insulin sensitivity to the point where it could bring on latent diabetes. Not getting enough sleep boosts cortisol, which has catabolic effects on muscle. Cortisol aids in the activity of lipoprotein lipase, an enzyme that encourages the body to store fat. Training too late or too hard before sleep may interfere with sleep and thus paradoxically counteract the otherwise beneficial effects of exercise on body fat. Too much stress. That's the next one. Too much stress. Mental stress also boosts cortisol. Exercising when you're under a lot of mental stress may inhibit fat loss due to stress-induced cortisol production. As suggested As I suggested earlier, elevated cortisol often goes hand in hand with insulin resistance, further hampering fat loss through decreased fat usage. As if that wasn't enough, elevated cortisol levels tend to depress leptin, increasing appetite and making dieting harder than it should be. Next factor that inhibits fat loss: mental depression. I know that seems a little strange. Why would being depressed hinder your fat loss? Mental depression is another form of stress that leads to elevated cortisol levels. Again, this can lead to diabetes, loss of muscle, and elevated visceral fat, which is the deep lying fat in the abdomen and is considered dangerous because of its direct link to diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, and the metabolic syndrome. Having a lot of visceral fat is strongly associated with tissue inflammation, which is extremely catabolic to muscle, as well as the cornerstone of nearly all degenerative diseases. I mentioned in a previous video that one of the main reasons why people lose muscle as they age is because of systemic inflammation, which leads to a catabolic state in muscles. Exercise stress may depress the release of hormones linked to lower body fat, such as growth hormone and testosterone. When you're under stress, growth hormone and testosterone release are blunted. Both of these hormones, GH and testosterone, counteract the effects of cortisol in the body. Elevated, and lower testosterone is definitely linked to a greater concentration of fat in the abdominal area, especially in men, I should say. In fact, you see a lot of guys walking around over 40. They have skinny arms, skinny legs, and a big fat gut or a belly. A lot of this has to do with low testosterone levels because the beta adrenic receptors in the abdomen that mobilize or help to release body fat kind of close up after a while, and they are reopened when you bring your testosterone level back up. Another reason why some people have a problem losing body fat is because of their sex. Women, being female, women appear to have more trouble losing body fat through exercise than men. One reason is that they have a decreased sympathetic response. That is, they produce less of the catecholamines, such as epinephrine and norepinephrine, which help release fat from fat cells. If you have a lesser response during exercise, you experience a lower rate of fat burning. Women also have a preponderance of alpha-2 adrenic receptors in their hips, upper thighs, and buttocks. And the A2 receptors also resist fat release. Another reason why women have trouble losing body fat, especially in their lower bodies. So, okay, what else? And another reason why you have trouble losing body fat, which you cannot control at all, is low birth weight. Even your weight at birth can affect your fat loss efforts. Low birth weight favors a later in life gain in body fat due to preponderance of genes that encourage fat storage over fat burning. Being fat as a child and adolescent makes it tougher to lose fat as an adult because fat kids have larger and more numerous fat cells that stick around for life. On the other hand, if you possess cold climate genes, meaning that your ancestors came from a region of cold weather, you likely have a higher resting metabolic rate or even more brown adipose tissue, or BAT, both of which favor fat loss response to exercise. In an upcoming issue of my Applied Metabolics newsletter, I'm going to have all the latest information about brown adipose tissue, a thermogenic tissue which converts fat calories into heat. And if you can activate these, it would make a tremendous effect on losing body fat. They've come up with a whole bunch of new ways where you can activate this brown adipose tissue. It will be discussed only in my Applied Metabolics newsletter and nowhere else. Another reason, another kind of strange reason why some people don't lose fat, it's fat germs. Believe it or not, certain viruses can actually, they've shown in animal studies and a couple of human studies actually seem to encourage fat gain. It's for example, one study of obese subjects found that 36% of them were infected with a virus called adenovirus 36, which tends to encourage obesity by telling the body to develop new fat cells. This is a developing area in science, and it's again very controversial. It's not written in stone yet that that people get fat from being exposed to viruses, but there is a possibility. I will also cover that All the nuances of that in a future issue of my Applied Metabolics newsletter. Another reason, and this is very serious, another reason why you have trouble losing body fat, mitochondrial damage. I mentioned in previous videos and in my Applied Metabolics newsletter, the mitochondria are cigar-shaped organelles in cells where energy in the form of ATP is produced. They are also the site of fat oxidation in cells. Those with long-standing higher fat stores often have greater rates of internal oxidation. The portion of the cell undergoing the most oxidation under normal circumstances is the mitochondria, which is also where energy is produced and fat is burned. Long-term damage to mitochondria can result in impaired fat burning. Special thermogenic proteins called uncoupling proteins found in the mitochondria are key players. And by the way, these uncoupling proteins are also activated by DNP, dinitrophenol, which I discussed in a previous video. Very dangerous stuff. When mitochondria are damaged, the uncoupling proteins don't function properly. Result: fat gain. Studies show that the obese often have smaller and less functional mitochondria, so they experience less effective fat burning and less efficient energy production and find it hard to exercise. What's the best way to increase mitochondria? There's a couple of nutrients that do this. They do this by stimulating a protein called PGC1. I've discussed this in my Applied Metabolic newsletter, but in the most simple terms, the best way to increase your mitochondria is two ways: aerobic exercise and high rep weight training exercise. When I say high reps, I'm talking over 25 reps will increase mitochondria, will increase the efficiency of fat burning. Speaking of muscle, another reason why it's difficult, and this is going to piss off a lot of bodybuilders, has to do with fast twitch muscle fibers. Fast twitch muscle fibers are the muscle fibers. There's two main types. There's subtypes that I'm talking about. Two main types. One is slow twitch or endurance fibers. The others are the fast twitch muscle fibers. The fast twitch muscle fibers are the fibers most amenable to muscle hypertrophy. There's only one problem. Fast twitch fibers tend to prefer glucose as fuel rather than fat. In other words, the type 1 fibers are the ones that actually burn fat more efficiently. Those are the endurance fibers. You see that long distance runners, like marathon runners, they usually have a natural genetic preponderance of type 1 fibers, meaning they can burn fat more efficiently, which allows them to spare limited stores of muscle glycogen so they can complete something like a 26-mile, 385-yard marathon race. So believe it or not, having a greater amount of type 1 muscle fibers actually increases fat burning capacity, and it also tends to promote greater mitochondrial content that again emphasizes fat oxidation and greater endurance. But from a bodybuilding point of view, it's not great to have a lot of slow twitch fibers, because slow twitch fibers are smaller than fast twitch. So if you had a lot of slow twitch fibers, you would probably be very defined, but you would look very thin. You would not look like a bodybuilder. You would look more like a kind of an endurance, kind of a muscular track long distance runner. Another reason why, and this is a reason that a lot of people attribute their difficulty to losing body fat to, it's low thyroid. The thyroid over here, right here in the neck, the thyroid controls your resting metabolism. Well, it's uncommon. When they've done medical tests, most people who are overweight or obese, they would say, well, I got this way because I have a low metabolism. But the truth is, when they undergo lab tests for thyroid activity, guess what? Their thyroid, if anything, is actually slightly more active than normal. In other words, their obesity or their fatness is not caused by low thyroid activity. So, but there is some problems related to that through dieting. For example, if you go on an extreme low-carb diet, like a ketogenic diet, or a diet that contains, let's say, less than 50 grams of carbohydrate, you cause changes in your thyroid metabolism, where the active thyroid hormone called T3 is converted into another substance called reverse T3, which has almost no metabolic effect. So that's actually the main reason for the so-called dreaded dieting plateau that people experience. After a couple of weeks of dieting, their weight loss suddenly stops, usually because the body has sensed the decreased calories that you're taking in, and it's caused the thyroid to to convert the active thyroid hormone T3 into reverse T3. When that happens, weight loss stops. It stops. The only way to get it going is you have to get the thyroid going, which would involve increasing your carbohydrates, possibly increasing your calories, and if worse comes to worse, you might have to take a little bit of thyroid hormone just to kickstart the thyroid metabolism again. And the last reason why, this is also going to be, I find this particular subject fascinating when I'm about to talk about here. I think it's going to be, I'm going to have an article on this in my Applied Metabolics newsletter, because it's a greatly overlooked reason of why a lot of people are carrying too much body fat today. I'm talking about environmental toxins. The accumulation of environmental toxins has been linked to both obesity and failure to lose fat through exercise. In other words, being exposed to these environmental toxins actually blunts the exercise-induced fat loss. Some of these toxins are fat-soluble and include pesticide residue on fruits and vegetables or in animal feed, and they are stored long-term in body fat. They're released when fat is mobilized, as occurs when you're dieting for or exercising. And when they're released, they inhibit fat loss. So you could be dieting, doing everything right, you're losing body fat, but if you have these stored environmental toxins in your body fat, when they're released in the blood, they actually blunt the fat loss that you would normally be achieving through your diet and exercise. They also interfere with thyroid activity, and they make you feel sick when you're dieting. If you're feeling ill when you're dieting, it's probably from these environmental toxins that are being released in your body. Now, in my article in Applied Metabolics in the Applied Metabolics newsletter, I'm going to discuss what these various environmental toxins are, and how to deal with them, how to neutralize them, how to prevent them from inhibiting your fat loss when you're dieting. So if you want information like that, and also information on all aspects of nutrition, exercise science, food supplements, the total truth, hormonal therapy, anti-aging research, fat loss research, ergogenic aids, subscribe today to my Applied Metabolics newsletter, www.appliedmetabolics.com. 40 to 50 pages every month, like getting a monthly ebook. No ads, no BS, just evidence-based truth. I absolutely promise you, I guarantee, no matter what your level of knowledge or study is, you will learn something new, many things new, in fact, in every issue of my Applied Metabolics newsletter. There's nothing like it on the web. There's nothing like it in magazines anywhere. And I'm also including my 55 years of empirical knowledge, training experience, and study. It's all being incorporated in the Applied Metabolics newsletter. You won't find a better source of information about these topics anywhere. I guarantee it. I've looked. Nothing beats it, if I say so myself. If you want the best friend you'll ever have, go to your local shelter, adopt a dog. They are loyal. They are great. I'm going to say it. In my experience, generally speaking, dogs are better than most people as far as loyalty and honesty and integrity. I'm sorry to say that, but this is based on many years of experience dealing with many humans and dogs. Take care.
Generation Iron 2.